What if mind comes before matter? Explaining idealism, panpsychism, and beyond those, a more compelling story about reality. This is part 3 in the series. Check out the other parts if you missed out. So far in this series, we've established 2 things. First, materialist concept of mind, in which consciousness is just what brains do. It doesn't survive as a coherent under examination. And second, consciousness has a self-grounding, irreducible character that resists being explained away as material processes. If materialism can't explain mind, what can? What does it look like to take mind seriously as something fundamental, not a product of matter, but likely prior to it? And what does that mean in terms of experiencing reality? Today we explore 3 alternative traditions and work toward what David Bentley Hart considers the most defensible picture, a kind of idealist monism, in which mind is not one thing among others, but the act that underlies everything. First, let's understand idealism. Idealism is the view that the mind, or something mind-like, is fundamental in the nature of reality. Matter on this view is not independent, the solid stuff we take it to be. It is, in some sense, held within mind. The most famous idealist in Western tradition is the 18th century Irish philosopher George Berkeley, who argued there is no such thing as material substance existing independently of minds. Physical objects exist as ideas in minds, and the reason the world has stability and consistency is that it is held together in the mind of God. And God is far more than a Zeus-like figure or someone from the myths and creation legends various scripture tries to depict and understand. With Berkeley's challenge to materialism, he claims that we can never actually have access to matter as such, only to our perceptions of it. The idea of mind-independent matter is an interface, not a direct experience, and it is an interface that creates the very problems we've been discussing. Hegel took idealism further. For Hegel, matter is not even a stable substrate. It is a kind of conjuring of appearances, and what is real is the movement of spirit coming to know itself through the world. Its core insight is that reality has a fundamentally rational, within a mind-like structure that mechanical materialism cannot account for. So, what is panpsychism? It is an increasingly popular alternative. The view that mentality is the basic feature of reality all the way down. Even electrons and quarks have some form of proto-experience. Mind does not emerge from matter. Rather, what we call matter already has a mental dimension. Hart finds panpsychism interesting, but ultimately formulated incorrectly. The problem is that most versions or explanations of panpsychism treat mentality as a material property, something possessed by particles the way mass or charge is possessed. But this does not really solve the problem. It just pushes it down a level. You still have to explain how lots of little proto-experiences add up to the rich, unified consciousness you are right now. Matter cannot be and is not a composite of smaller mental states. Hart's view is mind as act. Hart's own position is a form of monism, the view that the mind and matter are not 2 substances but aspects of one reality. But crucially, the fundamental reality is not matter at all, and it is not some neutral third thing. It is mind, understood not as a property or a thing, but as an act. This is a subtle but important distinction. Properties belong to substances. Acts are more fundamental. They are the doing that makes a thing what it is. For Hart, mind is the fundamental act of reality, and matter is a modality of this act. Physical causality is not purely mechanical. It has an intrinsic mental structure. This is why the universe is rationally ordered, why mathematics applies to nature and creates scientific breakthroughs, and even why there's something rather than nothing, and why something novel is possible. Science, Hart notes, tells us what matter does. It describes regularities and the exchange of energies, the mathematical laws. But it does not tell us what matter is. It just can't. When we are honest about the phenomenology of mind and the structure of life, what seems far more likely is that it functions like a modality of mental agency than the inert, mindless stuff those 17th century philosophers posited. This view has far more reaching implications than materialism for medicine, for our relationship to nature, for how we understand culture and language and life. If mind and nature are not separated, if the natural world has an intrinsic mental structure, then the project of dominating and mastering nature as though it were a collection of mindless mechanisms becomes not just ecologically, but metaphysically confused, even unjust. More immediately, it means the failure to integrate mind into our model of reality is not just a technical problem. It is a sign that our model needs to be adjusted and understood as much bigger than we've thought it to be. In our final episode, we'll take all this to its natural conclusion, asking what the structure of mind and consciousness ultimately reveals about the ground of all being, which is perhaps the oldest question of all. Thanks for joining me, and feel free to leave thoughtful comments after you subscribe, and I'll see you next time.